Happy Thursday and welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, as we are every week with you, bringing you the 5 biggest headlines around Husker Nation as we get ready for Saturday's Nebraska and Northwestern game. Steve Sipple, let's get into headline number 1. Big opportunity. Nebraska gets a chance to jumpstart the second half of the season with a very favorable, winnable type of matchup against Northwestern. They have an interim head coach, injuries at the quarterback position. Huskers are a favorite over a Power 5 opponent this year for the first time. Double-digit spread, about 12 points, give or take, heading into this game. A team that's not going to light the world up with offense. They will throw it, but there's a lot about this matchup that gives Nebraska a great opportunity to get a win Saturday.
Oh, absolutely. It's a good matchup for Nebraska. You know, Sean, life and sports is much about matchups, and Nebraska runs the ball well. You know, one of the best running teams in the conference. Are they number 1, number 2, and Northwestern doesn't stop the run well. They're in the 100s nationally, so that's a good matchup. Northwestern, on the other hand, doesn't run the ball well, and Nebraska stops the run. Northwestern. Now, here's the thing. Now, the thing to really watch here is Ben Bryant. Ben Bryant is the Northwestern starting quarterback who did not play in their last game 2 weeks ago against Howard, injured. I will tell you this. I watched Ben Bryant against Minnesota. I watched Ben Bryant throw for 396 yards against Minnesota, Sean. 396. He's good. If they have Ben Bryant, it'll make a big difference. So who's out there under center on Saturday? I'll look at the game a lot differently if Ben Bryant's under center than I will if Brendan Sullivan's under center.
Cam Porter's the running back, but his career has really slid off. I mean, remember there was a time where he was like the future of Northwestern, and as a 2020 guy, he was the leading rusher for them on that COVID year where they played for the Big Ten title. But then he got injured.
Yeah, you're right.
So he's a proven Big Ten running back at 5'10", 220. He had 90 yards rushing against UTEP, but hasn't been.
No, he's averaging 4 a carry.
18 carries for 78 against Howard, 16 for 56 in the win over Minnesota. So they will give Cam Porter the ball 15 to 20 times in this game.
Yeah,
and that I don't think you don't want to forget about him, because there was a time where he was considered an all Big Ten level, like second, third team all Big Ten level back.
He was,
but he's not been.
And he looked good against Nebraska and Ireland. They ran well. They ran the ball well against Nebraska. And remember Ireland, Sean?
No doubt. Yeah. I remember that trip.
So
beautiful trip.
But it is. Listen, this is I don't like to engage in hyperbole. Okay, but this feels like a monster game to me. These next 2, actually, Northwestern and Purdue, they do.
It's funny, on our chat this week on a Husker Online on the Red Sea Scrolls, somebody asked, is this like the biggest game of the year? And I go, they're all the biggest game.
Yeah, they're down the stretch are going to be huge.
At a place like Nebraska, there isn't, a game that's not big.
Well, but yes, but what I'm talking about is if Nebraska wins the next 2, that's 5 of 6 wins. That'd be 5 wins in 6 games. That would thrust Nebraska legitimately into the West Division race. Legitimately. Now, again, there's a lot to take care of here. I'm not
beat Maryland and Michigan State though.
Yeah,
and Purdue.
But take care of. I'm not looking that far down the line. I'm just looking at these next 2 at home. You have 2 home games, and they're big. Come on. It's not going to make or break anybody if they lose. But I believe if they win these games and play well down the stretch, I think it can hasten the process. It can make the process of building this program go a lot quicker and smoother if you win these games.
Iowa, too, they are the favorite in the West, but they're one bad offensive Saturday from falling apart. If they turn it over and
lose. Now, hold on. Falling apart meaning losing a game?
Yeah, well, the way Nebraska beat them last year.
Right.
Nebraska, this is essentially the same type of Iowa team a year ago that Nebraska went into Iowa City and beat.
I would agree. I don't think Iowa will fall apart for a season. I don't think
They lose 2 games though of their final 5.
They could. They could
lose to Minnesota. I mean, I would not be surprised
for sure.
at all.
For sure.
Minnesota beats Iowa. Would not be surprised at all.
What I'm trying to express is I don't think Iowa will fall apart as a program with 1 loss. They're too solid.
But they're very limited. I think if the right team can force some turnovers or do something with their offense,
get up 10-0.
Well, just like last year. What was Nebraska up 24-0 on Iowa?
Yeah.
And they forced turnovers and they had that sack. I mean, if you could do that to Iowa, they're not built
to come back.
And I mean, Nebraska almost blew the lead last year, but they held on.
Yeah. So what the situation is with Iowa? They have a big game against Minnesota, 2:30 start, and then they have a bye. They have a bye after that. They can really solidify themselves going into the bye week, and then they can work on all their offensive issues. Wisconsin, on the other hand, another team that you'd consider a contender in the West, obviously, 2-1. Wisconsin, though, after losing to Iowa, now goes to Illinois and then has Ohio State next week.
They could lose them both.
Right. And then they're pretty much out.
And we'll hit on more Big Ten stuff later in the show. But, big opportunity. And, one of the payoffs of playing those 2 road games to start the year is you're home right now in October. I mean,
right.
Nebraska's got this stretch where they're home for a lot of games down the stretch.
Oh, yeah.
Because they played that Minnesota game on the road in week 1. So it's to be home like this 2 straight October Saturdays. It doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. And there's so they got that working. They have chemistry on the team. I'm convinced it's a good chemistry team. They have a little momentum. They have a winnable game. It's set up pretty well for them. But as we know, there's no guarantees here. When you have an offense like Nebraska's, there's no guarantees.
There is no plan Bs with this offense.
Not really.
I mean, they've gone through them with injuries.
Yeah, it'd start getting pretty extreme, the plan Bs. I hesitate to do this, but I think about it. What if you would put on this team right now, going into the final 6 games, Gabe Ervin, Ramir Johnson, Marcus Washington, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, and Xavier Betts?
You look at them as a team that could maybe win the West.
Absolutely.
Well, what if they just would have beat Minnesota?
Yeah.
The whole thing's different.
I know. Isn't it crazy?
Jeff Sims is available. He's been available, but Harburg's the guy. And we're not. In fact, we've had this conversation. We would have been more surprised if Rule said it. And we're going back to Jeff this week. I mean, I think it would have been an uproar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is Heinrich Harburg's job until he gives them a reason not to make it his job.
Yeah.
And then they go back to Sims. But if Harburg keeps winning and does what they need him to do, he's the guy.
I think so. He's got a tough job, though, because of what we said. He's going to have to carry quite a load. We don't even know Sean, I don't even know what the running back picture is going to look like in the wake of.
You just pray that Anthony Grant can give you about 15 to 20 carries
without fumbling. If you're a Nebraska fan, there's 2 things that come to mind right now. You want Anthony Grant. It would be great if you're walking out of the stadium on late Saturday around dinner time, and Anthony Grant carried 20 times for 125 yards, no fumbles. And it would also be great if Malachi Coleman, which we'll get to in the next segment, had about 5 catches for 70. You'd feel a lot better about everything. Malachi Coleman's going to start the game.
Well, by default, though, essentially. I mean,
right.
It's basically him or like Ty Hahn, and they want to get these young guys going. But thank you for joining us here on HuskerOnline Headlines. Before we get to our next headline, this segment of the show, headline of the show, brought to you by Caldera Lab. Let me tell you about Caldera Lab. I'm almost getting Steve Sipple on board with it as well. Caldera Lab is a premium skin product. Taking care of your face should be right up there with brushing your teeth, combing your hair. It's an important thing. And it can really, by using Caldera Lab, it takes 30 seconds in the morning, 30 seconds at night. You put it on, go to bed, you put it on after you get out of the shower. Your skin looks better, it feels better. I've been using it since the start of the football season. In fact, I just re-upped my order and got it this week at my house because I've been that impressed with the product and the results it's given. I urge you to try out Caldera Lab. We got a great deal for our Husker Online listeners. Go to calderalab.com with promo code Husker, and we will give you 20% off. 94% of men have shown improvement by using Caldera Lab. Once again, that's calderalab.com, promo code Husker for the 20% off discount. Thank you again, Talgadere Lab, for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Headline Show. All right, let's get on the headline number 2. Malachi Coleman and the young wide receivers are going to get a major opportunity here over the next 6 weeks. And those young receivers, besides Malachi Coleman, are Jalen Lloyd, Jaden Doss. Those are the 3. And somebody asked me this week, how would you see the snaps being parceled? And I think Malachi Coleman, maybe 40, 50 snaps.
Yep.
And Lloyd and Doss are probably like 10 to 15 snaps each.
Yeah, I don't know after that. But Coleman had 56 snaps against 58, 56
against Illinois.
Now, again, huge. This is big. These guys, you hope that they're thinking team right now and that the team needs us. And you know what? If you do that, if you think of it that way, Sean, that can take pressure off of you, actually. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing it for these guys that I know and I love. And I'm doing it for these veterans who so badly want to have a good season after all these struggles. If you think of it that way as a young player, I think it actually takes pressure off. So I kind of hope that's the way they're thinking of it. Again, Coleman, 1 catch against Illinois. If he's going to be a starting receiver, you hope that they have the confidence to throw at him enough times that he can get 5, 6 catches. And that'll be a big story if he does.
Well, and playing at this level, it's so much more than just physical ability.
Yeah.
Because Coleman has the physical ability. He's tall, he's athletic, he can run, he can jump. But there's just so many precise things that young receivers have to learn, like getting off the line of scrimmage, running the right route depth, making the right decisions on option routes. Because if you make the wrong decision on an option choice route, it's a pick. If you run a route not to depth, it's a pick.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that you have to teach these young receivers. And I think just the common football fans, like, why can't you get a young receiver out there early and tell them just to go run and catch the ball? It's just not that simple.
Well, and you're playing against good corners, good defensive backs, veteran defensive backs. Yeah, veteran defensive backs that are smarter than you, probably stronger than you. So that's absolutely it's a task, and it's a big. It'll be. Sean, come on now. It's going to be a big part of Saturday. We're going to be everybody's going to be watching it really closely, how those young guys do.
But will they play a lot of 3 wide receiver sets?
Good question.
Would they? But they take Billy Kemp off the field.
Yeah.
And and you could have Bullock and Coleman out there as the 2 receivers. Like, we see that a lot. I mean, Kemp will play less snaps than Bullock a lot of games.
Yep.
Just by the nature of the formations.
Right. So you think they could be playing some more Thomas Fidone and Borkercher sets?
That is, the 2 tight ends, 12 personnel. I mean, that seems like their base set, right?
It does. And Fidone's obviously, he's got 12 catches and he's Heinrich Harburg's probably favorite target. Borkercher's the guy, I think, in the final 6 games that you want to see. I'd like to see him go to him more. I think Borkercher's, I'd like to see Harburg go to him more because I think Borkercher's very capable. All hands on deck. I mean, this is all hands on deck deal. You just got to have to move the ball by whatever means possible. You're in sort of an extreme situation right now.
Yeah. And there's been some people ask, what about the fullback? Where's Barrett Liebentritt? No one's really asked Matt Rule about Liebentritt, but he's been out with injury, and that's kind of changed the look of using the fullback and how they utilize the fullback in the offense. And Janiron Bonner actually got some touches.
He did.
Just trying to incorporate some new wrinkles.
Makes sense.
And they have to, but I think there's this nostalgic feel like Husker fans want the fullback to be so involved, but Liebentritt was the guy. I don't know if the other fullbacks could do the blocking things that they want to see.
Yeah, it's Bonner. I mean, that's who you're generally talking about. And I think Bonner can run it a little bit, but yeah, you're just trying to take
Luke Lindenmeyer can do it too, but he's not a true fullback.
Right. And again, and then where does Sims factor into this conversation? Jeff Sims. Would you see him in another position?
I got asked that question in Fremont at the lunch.
Sure, you did.
I just can't see Rule getting too cute with that. Cute's not going to win games in the Big Ten West.
No, usually doesn't.
Hey, there's nothing cute about the Big Ten West.
No,
it's just ugly fist fight football, and you're not going to win it by doing cute Jeff Sims packages.
I don't know. I'm open to it.
You want well?
I'm open to it. I'm open to it. I'm not suggesting it. I'm
What
just
does he do
open-minded.
differently than Harbor?
Well, I don't know. See, now it naturally evolves into a complicated discussion. So what are you talking about? Are you talking about using them simultaneously, or are you talking about, or maybe what you're talking about is using sims for a series or two? I'm talking about using them both on the same field at the same time.
Well, we saw that early in the year where Harburg was more of an H-back.
Right. So I don't know if Sims is equipped for that or not, or if he's willing. I don't know. Again, it gets, we always have these conversations where you can use both. Okay. Use both. Okay. Now you got to tell me what it's going to look like. All right. How are you going to do it? Okay, I get it. Use both. Now I need to know what you're talking about. Are you talking about using him as a running back? Are you putting him in a slot? Yeah, I don't know what you're doing.
But again, though, like, how do you train up Jeff Sims to start playing a receiver?
I don't know. Exactly.
Like, it's not that easy.
No.
Like, it's not a video game.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, this is not like, hey, he's got the attributes of this and the height and weight like a video game. Let's put him in there and see how I mean, there's a lot that goes into it and a lot of practice time and preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think there's high value of him being a good backup quarterback.
I do too. And I think that's that's the answer to the question. I always get a little skittish when you talk about using a quarterback at another position, because all you're doing is taking away reps at the position that he plays, quarterback, and he needs all the reps he can. And he's working with the ones at quarterback.
This is not Crouch Newcomb 99.
I don't think so.
And for our younger listeners, Newcomb was the starting quarterback. Then Crouch rotated, played some receiver. Then they go to Crouch as the starting quarterback, and then Newcomb moved to receiver.
Yeah,
Newcomb returned punts.
He did. I don't think we're looking at that. Those guys were more. Those guys, Crouch
Smaller.
and Newcomb, were smaller, a little more dynamic.
Different offense.
Yeah, different offense. Yeah, different conversation.
Whole different. I mean, the league now, when you talk about that era, this era, it's so much more pro driven, like measurables, linemen, style play. Like Nebraska wasn't seeing like NFL true measurables like you do now in the Big Ten.
Right.
I mean, you're basically seeing pro teams, like pro developmental type teams in this league, where it's a different era. You could have offensive linemen that were 6 foot tall.
One question before we go to the next segment: how many times will Harburg have to carry the ball in this game?
12 to 15.
Ooh, lighter than I thought you would have said 18 to 20.
Well, I don't think he's had 18 or 20 design run calls all year.
But he ran it 18 or 20 times against Illinois.
You're counting sacks then.
Okay.
Like, again,
12 to 15 design runs.
Look at what
12 to 15 is a good number.
The design runs, like it's the stupid we've talked about. In college football, they count sacks. Yeah. It's not a run. It's not a rush. It's a hit, though. But, all right, before we get to our next headline, thanks to Bauer Infrastructure for sponsoring us here on HuskerOnline Headlines. Bauer Underground is helping shape Nebraska's infrastructure future, and they're looking for new members to join their team with open positions for laborers, equipment operators, aerial linemen, and foremen. Bauer Underground is searching for the best in construction. Visit BauerUnderground.com to learn more about career opportunities and industry-leading benefits, including competitive pay, employer-paid health insurance, dental, disability, vision, and life insurance, 401k match, new top-of-the-line equipment, and a clothing allowance. No experience in utility underground construction? No problem. Bauer will train the right people in the field, giving you the hands-on experience you'll need to build a long, rewarding career. Want to learn more? Visit Bauer Underground on Facebook to view the testimonials from current Bauer teammates, hear about their experiences in the company culture, and we'll see Bauer on Saturday. They throw a great tailgate party for all of their employees, all of their infrastructure workers, and then they go up to their skybox, and a lot of those workers get to watch the game up there, right with company owner Stu Bauer. So they take great care of their employees at Bauer, and that's, better than anybody, Sip, working for a company that takes care of their employees. Hopefully we do that to you here.
Oh, you absolutely do. You could put some Caldera on and go drill a hole for Bauer Underground.
You think Stu Bauer uses Caldera?
He might.
I don't know.
He might.
I think I might get a fist for each.
I don't know if you'd get a fist. He's a good-looking guy. He's got all his hair and all that. He might use it.
Former Army Ranger, though.
Yeah.
You don't. But thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we have that conversation with Stu.
Thank you to Bauer Underground and Infrastructure for sponsoring us here on HuskerOnline Headlines. All right, let's take it to headline number 3. The old gray lady, as my friend Jim Rose likes to say on KFAB, Memorial Stadium will celebrate its 100th year anniversary on Saturday. 100 years, Steve Sipple. And that is going to be a lot of what this game is built around. The anniversary, they're going to wear, you probably didn't even know this, they're wearing throwback jerseys.
I did know that.
Or alternates. Not there are throwbacks with blue numbers.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I did know. This to me is a day about respecting Memorial Stadium, the old gray lady.
Who came up with it? Is that a Jim Rose thing, or did somebody else come up with
I think I give Jim credit. He's the one I heard it from.
Yeah, he used that for years.
But it's about respect for me. It's a structure, so you don't want to go too far down that road. But I mean, for a lot of people, there's incredible family memories that are built, that revolve around it or evolve from it. For sure, in my family, my dad, there's 3 boys in the family, and we would trade off Saturdays who gets to go to the games. And I mean, one of my biggest sports memories occurred in 1978 when Billy Sims for Oklahoma fumbled it to 2, and Nebraska won the game 17-14. It was an epic Oklahoma-Nebraska game. But the thing I remember, or the thing I think about first, is just what a monumental structure it is. And coming in as a kid, coming into Lincoln and looking over at that thing, it's always made a huge impression on me.
And back then, when games weren't really on TV a lot,
right?
When you're a young kid going in for the first time, it's impactful. I mean, my first game would have been in the late 80s. I saw Steve Taylor play a game, and I mean, it was like a New Mexico State or like a lower game, and they just mauled through them. But I was there for the Washington game and the Colorado game, the games they lost in the early 90s before they went on the run. Then we had season tickets. So I grew up sitting from 93 on in South End Zone, 16A row. 93
on to what?
Well, my dad still has the tickets.
I know, but when did you stop going to the games?
Well, so I graduated high school in the fall in 99. Okay. So 93 to 98, I went to all the games.
Okay. So yeah.
And then I went to college, and I've been to every game. I've been to every game since 99 pretty much.
My nostalgic memories, though, predate my work. I mean, I started covering Nebraska football in 95. And when people ask me this week, what are your memories? They're never during my work life. All my memories are pre-work life, childhood, couple, the Behringer, Colorado game,
94. That's one of my favorite memories.
Yeah, but because I think when you're working, it's the nostalgia kind of leaves you a little bit because you're not supposed to be in a fan mode. You're in a work mode. That's the way I've looked at it. My memories are mostly pre-work, like when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's more of a bit like people don't understand when we're up there, like you're doing about 10 things during the game.
Yeah. And I'm not feeling overly nostalgic most of the time.
No, I mean, you're worried about getting your deadline done so you can get up here for the post-game show to have your post-game margarita.
Right. Which we'll be doing on Saturday.
Big red smoke coming through.
But but it is a big day for and you know what? The other part of this conversation that's interesting to me is the old grade lady is going to undergo major changes. So you got to kind of honor her and understand that it's not going to look this way for much longer. When the construction begins in 2025, Sean, is that right?
Well, they'll start doing some things this winter, like preliminary things, but the big construction will be at 25. Big construction.
So yeah, we'll see what all it entails on Saturday.
Yeah, 99 was my first year as a professional, as a student. I was the KRNU sports director, so I was credentialed for those games back then. But so my experience covering the Huskers has been I've been into every game in that press box since it's opened.
That's amazing. I
don't know if you get a prize for that or anything.
You get no prizes. Trust me on that.
Just a lot of Valentinos.
Yeah, which is good. I'll take that.
But we had our own booth, like as a KRNU group. So we had our own little suite there. We did pregame, postgame. That was my first games covering it. And that press box, when that opened in 99, that was top of the line. And it still is one of the best press boxes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'd say Michigan. What's your favorite press box we go to in stadiums?
Do people care about this? I will say,
stop it, Mornings You guy.
My favorite press box, Minnesota, maybe.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I did not like that dig. Did not like that.
Well,
dig.
it's our life. I don't, people favorite stadiums. I kind of like Minnesota. I like Minnesota.
You see, McBride's back. Charlie McBride was at practice today, by the way, and George was there, and Jared Tomich, and they spoke to the team. So,
wow,
there's going to be a lot of dignitaries back for this 100th year anniversary.
That's beautiful, by the way, to have Charlie speak to a defense that is locked in. This is a defensive program now. To have Charlie speak to him makes a lot of sense.
And then every player that had a dad that played for McBride came up and took a picture with Charlie.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad. That's a great angle. Seriously.
Rule gets it. I mean, Rule understands like what those types of things mean.
Yeah, Sean, you hear it on the message board, and you probably hear it in your life. Some people are like, come on, Sean, quit living in the past. It's not that we live in it. We just respect it.
And we're not here without the past.
Right.
Like
right.
There isn't 90,000. I mean, think about what Memorial Stadium is. Like that stadium gets bigger crowds than the Broncos and the Chiefs. It's bigger than any structure in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, South Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado.
Right.
And we are far smaller populations than a lot of those states.
Yeah. One time I heard somebody say, and I don't know if I agree with it or not, but it made an impression on me. If Nebraska hadn't gotten good under Devaney and then continued under Osborne, we'd just be a truck stop on the way to Denver. I mean,
we'd be a version of Wyoming without the national parks. more like, I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
See, like South Dakota and Wyoming have like the great national parks and tourist things. Like what do we have?
Well, we have that big stadium over there that we're going to honor.
And we have events like the World Series and things, but like Nebraska football is such a big thing of the identity. Like when you go somewhere, like there's a sense of pride when you say you're from Nebraska and they say, "Oh, you guys play good football."
There. Yeah, we did for a long time.
But like that's what it means to Nebraska. Like, yeah, we're a little state with very little population, 4- and 5-star recruits, but we can line up and kick Texas's butt.
Yeah,
I mean it'd
be nice to get back to that. But again, going back to Rule, he does embrace it. He does. I mean, it's genuine. He genuinely embraces it because Rule is 48 and he understands the magnitude of what Nebraska did, like you do.
All right. Before we move on to headline number 4, Husker Online headlines, brought to you by CHI and Pediatric Place at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Lincoln. Children are little. Their emergencies, though, are not, and accidents happen, and illness does not wait until 8 a.m. Pediatric Place at CHI Health St. Elizabeth is Lincoln's only ER for kids. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for pediatric emergency care. They have child-friendly rooms and a private waiting area to help put kids at ease. Check out the pictures of the rooms at CHI Health. You can check it out at chihealth.com/pediatric place. They have an expert staff that specializes in pediatric and emergency care. To learn more about Lincoln's only ER for kids, visit chihealth.com/pediatric place. Thank you to CHI Health for sponsoring us here on Husker Online headlines. All right, headline number 4, and it's going to go recruiting here, Steve Simple. But Nebraska made a very notable junior college offer. In fact, they made a couple this week, but I want to hit on this one first. Former Texas A&M 5-star wide receiver Damon Demis was offered by Nebraska this week. He was dismissed from College Station for an assault deal, and that has gone through the legal process and has moved forward where he'll be done with. There was no formal charges that came down on him, and he's completed a probationary period. Nebraska offered Demis his first scholarship of any team since the incident. He's at Garden City Community College, plays for Ron Mimick, who was the coach of several other Husker players at Arizona Western.
Yep.
But this is interesting because they need receivers for next year.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, Billy Kemp's a senior. Marcus Washington, we don't know his status moving forward. So that situation there, and they've kind of gone, they've made a move here on a guy that has ability, but obviously has baggage.
Right. And, we have this discussion a lot, and we've had it over the years. It's a little hot buttony. I'm of the mind that Nebraska has to take chances like this.
They're not getting a 5-star like Damon Demis the traditional way.
Right. So, and I'm sure it's been fully vetted. They feel comfortable with this. There's always risk. I mean, and they understand there appearances that aren't perfect, but you said it. I mean, there's a need. Okay. And I think there's a pure need in that your wide receiver room isn't loaded with talent right now. And then there's the other need of what you said. Can't emphasize it enough. It's hard for Nebraska to go get these guys straight up against Texas and Ohio State and USC and Oklahoma and Georgia and Alabama. It's hard to get them straight up now.
Coming out of high school, Damon Demis was ranked higher than Jackson Smith-Ojigbo.
Yeah.
That's all you got to know. I mean, his ability, he's
you talk to him.
Yeah, 6'3", 200 plus pounds. And, that's why we went on the road. People always like, why do you guys go to these satellite camps and things? Because they're just stocks that keep producing dividends.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that we got out of that trip to Houston. I met Damon just standing on a Friday. Well, I don't know what night it was, but it was an evening night on a sideline in Houston.
Yeah.
And introduced myself. We started talking. And then Nebraska's coaches started talking to him after we were done talking. And he was on their radar. And there's no doubt they wanted to kind of see how things shook out with this legal issue and how things have gone for him at Garden City. And things were on track. And when they offered him a scholarship, the entire staff was on speakerphone.
Is that right?
So this was a priority.
That's a priority, all right.
And he said that he more or less said he's committed right now.
Really?
He wants to get up there. He goes, I've never been to Nebraska before. I want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
The next opportunity for him to get here is probably the Iowa game. So I would imagine. I think there's
that could be a big game.
I'll say this. I think there's a better than 50% chance that he's a starter for Nebraska next year.
Really?
Well, if he comes here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. If he comes here.
Well, and he's going to, I think. I think Nebraska offering first, and JUCO guys play all the way through Thanksgiving. So there's really not a lot of weeks for them to come on visits. So I think Nebraska made a calculated first shot on him. And, they researched the situation and kind of what's come out of it. And like his coach said, you can read Google and decide whatever way you want to go on this thing. But his coach, Ron Mimick, spoke, very highly of what he's seen from Damon, and we'll see if that translates.
I like it because, and I like the fact he's right down there in Garden, really close. He's used to the Midwest now. It wouldn't be a big adjustment for him. Very similar situation. I mean, similar, at least environment. Now you're moving into a big time program and you're playing a big time conference, but he's got the kind of talent that can handle that.
I've had a lot of people try to compare this to the Arik Gilbert situation, and I think they're completely different. First of all, Arik Gilbert never had any legal issues.
Right.
He had personal mental health issues.
Right.
And
way different.
And what happened became a legal issue, but none of that was ever an issue before it happened in Lincoln.
Right.
And the mental health issues, obviously, he battled led to what happened.
Yeah. Some of this, Sean, doesn't it come down to if you're a fan concerned about Damon Demis's background, to a large extent, you just have to trust the head coach here, right? You have to trust that it's been vetted, that it's not just, this isn't a whimsical decision. So I happen to trust Matt Rule. And not only Rule, though, there's an apparatus here that's very supportive, right, Sean? I mean, there's team psychologists. There's a big staff here that tries to, an academic staff, et cetera, that tries to ensure that this sort of thing can transpire smoothly. They put everything's in place for it to work. It doesn't always work. It didn't work with Maurice Washington, right? It didn't work.
It didn't work with Xavier Betts. It didn't work with.
Not really. No.
I mean,
no, it didn't.
They thought it worked.
Right.
They got him on track, and he still quit.
Right. So you don't know.
I think in a situation like this, so I'm fascinated by one guy on the staff, Jarrett Wishon.
Yeah.
The assistant to the head coach for Matt Rule. He has a deep law enforcement background, and he's kind of Rule's right-hand man, but he was a special agent and criminal investigator for the ATF Also was a detective for the Charlotte Police Department for 9 years. So when you need somebody to kind of sniff out a situation, that's a pretty good guy on your staff that can help you. And I don't know that's the case in the situation, but Rule has people around him on his staff that, if they need to find out things, they know how to find out things.
Yeah, that might be helpful. That might be helpful.
So that's what I need to, before I hired you, I had to have a guy like that.
Oh my God, Sean. Headline 4 coming up.
That was headline 4, by the way. All right. All right. Before we get to headline number 5, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Underdog Sports. We see a lot of you are downloading Underdog, using the promo code, and having fun, which we love to see. If you haven't already checked them out, be sure to do so. It's super easy to use. You get to the app, you pick whether your favorite player will have a higher or lower stat total than what is listed. For example, if Travis Kelce's number is set for 50 yards and maybe Taylor Swift's going to be in the house, you might feel confident that he's going to go higher than that number. Do that with 2 to 5 different players and you're in business. If you go 5 for 5, you can go 20 times your money. So sign in today with promo code Husker and get your first deposit doubled of up to $100. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with my promo code Husker to get your first deposit double of up to $100. There is a lot of fantasy companies out there, but we've decided to partner with Underdog because it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. You must be 18 and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. All right, let's take it to our final headline of the show. Big Ten related, Steve Sipple. Most intriguing Big Ten storylines here heading into what is now week 8 of the college football season. Let's start. We're going to find out a lot about the East, Ohio State and Penn State.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd start with Iowa.
Oh, well, we go to Iowa next.
Penn State, Ohio State is a mega game. It's a monster game. Monster. I mean, it's monster for a lot of reasons. The Ohio State coach, you lose that game, pressure ramps up right away. I mean, okay, now you've lost to Penn State. You got Michigan coming down the pike. Are you got to not win the Big Ten again? I mean, third straight year, you're not going to win the Big Ten. That doesn't fly to Ohio State. So there's that. There's also on the other side, on James Franklin. He's only won the Big Ten one time. That fan base is going to be, it wants to win a Big Ten title, Sean. These are monsters playing. They're monsters. They're loaded up. They're good teams. They're not as good as Michigan, I don't think. I don't think either of them is. I don't think either of them is as good as Michigan. That's my read right now. But the winner's going to walk out of there feeling like bring on Michigan. Not that they're looking ahead, but that'll be, the fan base will feel like that.
Oh, and speaking of Michigan today, Jim Harbaugh was slapped with more NCAA allegations. Michigan was charged. NCAA is investigating them for in-person scouting of opponents. So they sent coaches to possible college football playoff opponent games to pick up signals on the sidelines and learn signals of their opponents. So
not the best, but it doesn't offend my senses too much.
You know who got nailed for that years? Bill Callahan got nailed for that.
Did he really?
When he was an assistant for Illinois, he went to a game, or was the assistant for Wisconsin, excuse me. He went to an Illinois game.
Okay.
And this was documented. It's not like I'm telling something that no one knows.
Right.
And went up to the press box after the game where the coaches are, and he was caught taking like play sheets.
Now that's different than going to a game and picking up signals. Though, right? Going to a game and picking up signals feels savvy to me. It doesn't it? Does it feel like, is it offensive to Sean Callahan's senses? Like, is there
an actual rule that says like members of a coaching staff can attend other team games?
Apparently.
So the specific opponent, this is in the Football Scoop article. Several outlets have covered this so extensively. Specific opponents were not named, though they were believed to be both in the Big Ten and possible future college football playoff opponents. It's also not clear if the alleged person scouts worked directly for Michigan or were others who were loyal to the program.
Again, listen, cheating. I'm not condoning cheating, but please, listeners, hear me say that. I'm not condoning cheating, but this doesn't strike me as heinous. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm not too worried about this.
So here's more. The NCAA,
Great.
It's not illegal to steal opponent signals.
Okay.
Because that happens.
Okay.
But it is illegal since 1994 to scout in person.
Okay.
And you ever wonder,
that's a strange rule to me.
One thing I've learned about those like cards.
Right.
Those are always dummies. Like those aren't actual play calls. Like those cards are essentially to block the person signaling the plays.
Okay.
And so if you hand signal plays, you might have 3 guys doing signals and only 1 guy's live, but you're still blocking the person because you don't want the opposing press box to see your signals.
Okay.
And Northwestern, speaking of the Wildcats this week, they got Bo Pelini on that. Bo Pelini kept a lot of his signals and calls the same, to the point where Blake Lawrence, who played for Bo as a Big 12 linebacker, years later, the calls and signals were the same. He could call a game from seeing the sidelines.
Is that right?
What do you think Northwestern could do?
They could do it.
And they were calling out Nebraska's plays.
Rules are rules. I get it. But man, Sean, you played high school football. I played high school sports. Part of an assistant's duties for Columbus High basketball was to go scout the next opponent. It doesn't strike me as, oh my God, what are you doing?
Oh yeah.
You're going to scout the next opponent. Now picking up signals, to me, that almost seems like a part of the deal, right?
So we had in high school at Gross, we had a rival, Ralston. It was a huge basketball rival. Played for the district championship every year. Their coach was intense.
Yeah.
And he would sit behind our bench, like at an earshot distance, to hear our calls that we called in the games. Then when we played them, he would adjust his calls to our calls because he knew our calls.
Mm-hmm.
So then when we played them in districts, we put in completely new calls and a new offense to try to kind of
cat and mouse game.
Yeah. And
it seems like strategizing to me. I mean, I don't know. I'm not ardently defending Jim Harbaugh, but this doesn't strike me as anything I'd worry about.
So the Big Ten, according to The Athletic, believes that Michigan used a vast network of scouts to monitor opponent signals.
Okay, now we're pushing it a little bit. A vast network is, wow, Harbaugh's an interesting guy, isn't he? Okay, now if they broke the rules, they broke the rules. I'm not condoning it. Vast network of scouts takes it to another level. Anyway, going to Iowa. Sean, if you're a Nebraska fan, you're watching the Iowa game, or you're thinking about the Iowa game and praying that Minnesota beats them, right? I mean, this is Iowa's schedule. Let's put it this way. You could make a strong case that Nebraska is the toughest remaining game on Iowa's schedule.
Because they have Rutgers,
Illinois. At home, Rutgers at home, Illinois at home. Well, no, they play then Northwestern in Chicago.
It's at Wrigley.
Yeah, it's at Wrigley. I don't know.
And that's going to be more Iowa fans,
right?
I mean, there's going to be no Northwestern fans there.
But they have Minnesota, then the bye. Now, then that's another thing. There's their schedule right there. Thank you. They have Minnesota this week and then a bye. So they can kind of reconnoiter, Sean. They can kind of reevaluate.
That fancy word you just used?
That was a fancy word.
That's a columnist word. Not a South Omaha word right there.
You can stop. They got
reconnoiter.
Reconnoiter.
Way above my level of education.
Stop it. Once again, see that now that they got a bye week and they play Northwestern and Wrigley. That's right. Come on. I mean, that's a game they should win. After that, Rutgers at home, Illinois at home. Keep scrolling down, Megan. Oh, look at that. Sean, that's 10 wins.
Well, and in that Northwestern game, that's only like 4 hours from Iowa City. It's going to be in a neutral field with all Iowa fans.
Sean, that's maybe 11.
Can you imagine if Nebraska played at Wrigley? How many fans would go?
Oh, God. It would be incredible. It'd be incredible.
That's why Northwestern wanted to play Nebraska in Ireland, just to stop Husker fans from taking over that stadium.
Right. So, yeah, look at Iowa's schedule. You hope if you're Nebraska that somebody can trip them up. Minnesota Iowa coming off a big win against Wisconsin, going home to play Minnesota. Minnesota, what if they can get up 12-0? And then it makes it tough for Iowa. I don't know. I think that's a huge game.
Rutgers is tricky. Now, Rutgers,
tricky.
They play Indiana, and if they get that win, they're bowl eligible.
Yeah, that Rutgers is tricky. The other game that you're interested in is Wisconsin. Yeah, Wisconsin goes to Champaign. Wisconsin feeling really good about itself.
You think Jim Leonard might stay there for the whole week this week?
I doubt it. Why would he?
Well, I mean, there's got to be a little bit of meaning for him to get Brett Bielema ready for this game.
Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe he will stick around this week and not go home.
I still go back to that bowl game scene when Jim Leonard was the interim head coach. Then Luke Fickell got to come in and coach the bowl game.
What a kick in the!
I mean, talk about
kick in the groin.
Like how hard that would have been as a professional.
Oh God!
Like these are your kids that you've coached all year. The new guy gets to come in, and it'd have been like Mike Riley coaching the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah,
he went and watched practices that year.
Yeah, but it was tense. They didn't like that. Staff didn't like it.
I just can't even imagine.
The both staff did not like.
I can't even believe that Fickell wanted to coach that bowl game.
I know, it's kind of weird.
Like just let Leonard kind of finish it out.
Mm-hmm. But think about Wisconsin. They're on a shaky ground right now, Sean. They don't have Tanner Mordecai. They're going to go in there with Braden Locke, who played the second half against Iowa and is a very just serviceable 6 foot, 205-pound redshirt freshman.
Guy too?
Yeah, he came from Mississippi State.
Yeah, because they brought in 3 portal guys.
Yeah, redshirt freshman. Just Sean, I watched him. He's okay. He's just okay. And now they're going to Illinois. And then following up against Ohio State. In the next 2 weeks, Wisconsin could be out of it, Sean. They could be out of it.
Well, Braylon Allen's nicked up too.
Yep. Any other games of interest to you? I don't think so.
I think we've hit them.
Michigan goes to Michigan State. Michigan with the NCAA draped all over their back goes to Michigan State and maybe just puts the final nail in Michigan State's season.
Oh, Harbaugh's going to want to go in there with a big stick.
Yeah, and that's trouble for Michigan State. Michigan State coming off a dreadful loss at Rutgers where they got outscored 21-0 in the fourth quarter. Sean, a team can go away. I mean, teams go away sometimes. Michigan State might be that team.
And if you're Nebraska, you want Michigan just to twist the knife. So when you go up there, like they're so embarrassed and beat down that it's going to maybe detour 5,000 or 10,000 people from wanting to come, that we're going to come. You want to see 60 points on the board from Michigan. You do. If you're a Nebraska fan, I'll make this call right now. That top deck in East Lansing, there's like that will be pretty much empty. To start the game? Well, when Nebraska plays. Oh, when Nebraska plays. Okay. Yeah, this is a rivalry game. It will be far and away the least daunting East Lansing atmosphere Nebraska will have faced. And that will be sad because we've gone to East Lansing a few times and it's a pretty good atmosphere. The last time we went there was a really good atmosphere. We've always played there a lot of games at night. Yeah. Now, one of them was a 2:30 game, 3:30 out there, but a lot of times it's a night game. Those atmospheres have been good. Yeah, it just won't be. I do like East Lansing, other than the fact that United Airlines stopped service to Lansing. So we have to drive from Detroit. Short drive, though. Yeah, we'll do it. We'll be all right. 30 minutes. Couple weeks. Well, hey, make sure you join us. We're going to have the HuskerOnline post-game show. We're shooting for about an 8 to 8:30 window to start. A lot of it depends on how the Nebraska game goes and the time of game. But we will be on in the 8 o'clock hour for our 1 hour plus HuskerOnline postgame live show, where Steve Sipple will be given his postgame margarita, courtesy of our unofficial postgame margarita sponsor, Big Red Smoke. How about that? So he's coming through with food and looking forward to that. But make sure you join us on HuskerOnline.com as well. We've got plenty of great coverage leading up to the game, following the game. Avi Barmer will have elite coverage of Husker volleyball as well on that 1-versus-2 matchup that's going to happen Saturday night. Try us out 1 month for $1. Your first month for $1 at HuskerOnline.com. Signing off here for Husker Online Headlines for Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan.